We're going to take a look at polynomial division word problems. So here, all of these are based on the volume of a rectangular prism for the practice. And we're given the volume of the rectangular prism with this polynomial. And it says find the expression that represents the missing dimension. So looking here, looks like we have the width, we have the length, and what we're missing is the height. That height is our unknown. So if we think about our formula for volume, it's volume equals length times width times height. So let's set up an equation for this. So for volume, I'm going to put in this polynomial. And then I have, this will be equal to the length, so x minus 2 times the width, and the height. This is our unknown. So generally, when we have unknowns, we use a variable, and we tend to use x. But we wouldn't use x here because this is going to be some totally different number from these two. So we don't know what it is, and it doesn't say anything about it in relation to these other two lengths. So we have to use a different variable, and I'm just going to use h for height. Okay, so what we want to do is figure out what is h equal to. So I have this expression equals this times h. So to start off, what I'm going to do is do FOIL between these two. So this will stay the same. And then FOIL, I would have x squared. And then I have x times 1 is x minus 2, so minus 1x, or just minus x. I'll just write minus x. And then negative 2 times 1 is negative 2h. So h times this polynomial expression is equal to the volume here. So to find just h, the opposite of multiplying, so this is our algebra 1 doing the opposite. Opposite of multiplying is dividing. Okay, and this will cancel out. So we have a fraction here. So h, our height, will be equal to whatever this will come out to be when we divide. So we can use long division to do this. So I have x squared is x minus 2 on the outside. So the bottom of the fraction goes on the outside. The top will go on the inside. Okay, so now we just do our long division step. So I have x to the 4th and x squared, and I divide. So the first step is always divide. And after you do division, this value will go into your quotient. So I have x squared. So x squared times the divisor here will be x to the 4th minus x to the 3rd minus 2x squared, and then we subtract. So subtracting, minus a negative becomes a positive, minus a negative becomes a positive, and then I just go through and combine those like terms. So the first one should always cancel. 2 and 1 is 3, x to the 3rd. Negative 4 and 2 is minus 2x squared. Bring down the next term. Okay, so we repeat, starting with divide. So I have 3x to the 3rd divided by x squared is 3x. So that will be added up top for my quotient. And then I'll do 3x times the x squared minus x minus 2 to get 3x to the 3rd minus 3x squared minus 6x. Okay, so we subtract. First always cancels. Negative 2 and 3 is x squared, and negative 7 and 6 is minus 1x. Bring down the next term. So as I can see here, what I have here is the same thing as what I have up above. So off to the side, when we do that division, we will see that we only need 1. So I would do 1 times this, which would be the same thing, and everything will cancel out. So this expression would be that missing expression for the height. Okay, so this is one way of doing it using long division. Okay, another way of doing it is using synthetic division. So I know that I can divide these one at a time into the volume polynomial to find my answer. So instead of combining these two and multiplying and doing long division, what I can do is take one at a time, divide them out of this polynomial. So to do the synthetic division, I have this expression, x minus 2, and we have to set it equal to 0. And you add 2 to the other side to get x equals 2. So 2 is going to be my first number for the synthetic division. You could have started with x plus 1 also. Doesn't matter. You'll get the same answers. So now I go across. I use this, the coefficients from the polynomial, and placeholders if I need it. So I have 4, 3, 2, 1, constant. I do not need placeholders. So I should have 1, 2, -4, -7, -2. So those are just the coefficients from here. Bring down the first term, multiply, so 1 times 2 is 2, and then add, multiply, and then add, multiply, and then add, and then 1 times 2 is 2, and that's a remainder 0, so those just cancel out. Okay, so what we have here, if I were to put variables with this, if the original was x to the 4th, after doing division, we would have one less of a degree for our first term. So this is x to the 4th, then this is actually x to the 3rd plus 4x squared plus 4x plus 1, and we have a remainder 0. So that's dividing in my x minus 2 value. Now let's see, we have to do the x plus 1, set that equal to 0 to get x equals -1. So now I'm going to do -1 into what I have here, what I have remaining from dividing in the 2. So I have 1, 4, 4, and 1. Bring down the first term, multiply by the outside, then add, multiply by the outside and add, multiply by the outside, and that's just 0. So if this was x to the 3rd, then this one's going to be x squared. This will be 3x, and then plus 1, and that is our answer, and we got the same answer from doing both. Okay, so for the rest of these, I'm going to use synthetic division. As you can see, it's much quicker than the long division, but if you choose to do long division, that's fine. You should get the same answer as the synthetic division. Okay, so looking at number 2, same situation. I'm going to divide x plus 2 into the polynomial first. So we have to first set it equal to 0 to have x equals -2, and that's my first number for synthetic division. Looking at the exponents, 4, 3, 2, 1, constant. I'm not missing any terms. So 2, 1, -17, -16, and 12. Bring down the first term, and then multiply and add. Multiply and add. Multiply and then add. Why am I blanking out? This is 4, 5, 6, 6. And then multiply, and this cancels out. So if you understand how this becomes one lower degree of an exponent each time you do it, we can actually just leave this like this and just continue with our next synthetic division without having to rewrite. So we did with x plus 2. Now let's do with x minus 3. So 3 will be my next term. So I'm using these terms to figure out my numbers here. First number comes down, then you multiply and add, multiply and add, and then multiply, and those cancel out. So if my highest exponent was 4 here, then this answer would have been 3, And then my exponent should be 2 for this one. So this should be 2x squared plus 3x minus 2. And that is my height. Okay, and then we have one more. This one's going to be a little bit tricky because now we have x squared, so things are going to be a little bit different. So let's start with the x plus 1, setting that equal to 0. So we'll have -1, and we have 4, 3, 2, 1, constant, so no missing terms. I don't need placeholders. So this will be 1, 6, 4, -6, and -5. Bring down the first term, multiply, and then add, multiply, and then add, multiply, and add, multiply, and add. So that comes out to be 0. Okay, for x squared minus 1, when I go to solve for that, I would add 1 to both sides. And then to solve with x squared, we have to use square roots. So I have to take the square root of both sides. So x would be equal to the square root of 1 is just 1, but when we solve with square roots, it could be positive or -1. So we actually have to do synthetic division 2 more times. Okay, so I'll do -1 first. I'll write it up higher. So set up my synthetic division, -1. Bring down the first term, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, and those cancel. And then we have to do one more time, so with a +1. Okay, so this just means, since we used -1 twice, means there's a double root at -1. And if you recall, when we talk about double roots, that means that just the curve touches the graph at -1. So whether that opens up or down depends, but having a double root at -1 means that we have a curve going through it, and that's why we have to do it twice with the synthetic division. So we have x to the 4th in the original, which means this result would have been x to the 3rd, this would be x squared, and then this would just be x. So our answer would be x plus 5 for our height.